it takes them at intervals, distant intervals, but some of the scans, you know, it may be only 100 photos. There's one of the scans I've done is over 5,955 photos.
But what that allows us to do is, like this imagery right here is from GPS or Google, basically Google Earth. And this picture could be 5, 6, 7, 8 years old,
Yep.
maybe. So what this allows us to do is to get that imagery within 15 minutes, probably, of flight time.
Yep.
Get that real life imagery of what actually is down there right now at that instance, and then we can download that and lay it into this controller. So that instead of this map, now we'll have a real time image of whatever we're going to be spraying or mission we're going to be running.
There's be a lot of updates to the field. And so in order to make sure that we're not gonna run into that new shop that was put up, looking at on
Or the
satellite,
windmill
it might
usually
look like
is
it is over here. But yeah, we wanna have that accurate map so that we can go and run that exact same mission every time. Cause that way we don't have to recreate it, we can just refly it. And be able to have that repetitively is important. And that information.
So just for time's sake, I went through and just mapped. So this is every day or when we start or all of our pilots, what we do is this is our mapping, and it didn't take very long, but long enough. So once we get to this spot with the spray drone on the controller, we have to save every field. Once we save it, it's in there for life. And you can always go back and re-edit, move boundaries if you want to, do whatever. But that field, however you save it, will be in your account or in your cloud for as long as you have the drone or the account. So once it's saved, the process is to use it. That puts all your data entry in there for your mission or for what you're going to be spraying. You see the routes right now, it's running north and south. We can switch that just by double tapping a line. And then it'll run parallel with whatever boundary point or in between any of those points on that map that you put in there. So if I wanted to run it between those lines or run my boundaries, I could double tap and run them like that. So, and then on the top here we put in all of our gallons per acre, whatever we will be spraying. Flight speed, 32.8 feet per second is as fast as these go. Now, what is that, Joe? 21, 23 mile an hour?
It's fast. Faster than you can drive it.
So, once we get all that in there and it's saved, that map will pop up every time. We can change all that stuff in flight, in the mission. The only thing that we cannot change once we set it is the route spacing. Once we lock that and start that mission, we cannot change how wide our route's gonna be. We can change it before we start, but if we wanted to change it during the mission, we'd have to start over. So
the route spacing is your swath, basically. You know, how...
And with the different drones, you know, I guess, what would anyone guess a swath width would be feet-wise? Any ideas?
10
What we
feet.
run?
10 feet.
30.
So a lot of people, when we tell them what we do, like with these drones here, we'll run 30 to 34 feet. So a lot of people are pretty amazed at that. They think 10 feet because that's all the further apart those are.
10 feet's actually the minimum that we can go.
And the reason being, when we fly this stuff, it says 9.8 feet. That would be extremely low for us flying over the crops. We usually like to fly it at between 15 and 18 or 12 and 18 feet. The reason being is that allows you to get that pattern, and then how we get a pattern is it's called prop wash, and that's the downforce and the pressure you get that puts that liquid into the pattern.
The really cool part about that whole process is the fact that we have 4 rotors and they're pushing that air down. And so the action that we get is something different than an airplane or a tractor going through the field, because it ruffles all of the plants, it moves all of the leaves. With the combination of the spray and the way that comes out and how powerful it's coming out, it's capable of hitting that prop wash, and then it's able to get on more of the plant than any of the other processes. So more effective.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I got that.
Any questions on any of this? Go ahead.
The little one, how long does the battery last?
30 minutes would be a good flight, I would say. The littlest, the smaller they go, the variable is the wind speed. Because you'd be surprised how well the camera, I mean, you wouldn't think that drone is moving when you see the camera view. But in the air, this drone is actually, it's doing this. and it's compensating, it's reading all of its the telemetry that it gets from all of the sensors, and it's reading that, it's analyzing, and then it's spitting it out in the output of how fast it's spinning, whichever rotor it may be. One of the other interesting parts about that is that these are counter-rotating. So one on the left in the front, one on the right, they're going to spin opposite of each other, similar to two motors on a boat, where one goes one way, one goes the other, to offset that rotation of the motor, similar to that. But yeah, not as good as some of the other ones. I mean, this one has a dual battery system, flight time's a little bit more, and obviously you step up, larger battery capacity is the thing. It's impressive.
Do they have changeable batteries like the big one, or do you have to
Nope.
plug it in?
Yep, just pull right out, and it'll let you know. In fact, what's really nice about all these is if it gets low on battery, it'll fly itself back and land right where it took off. Yeah. And if you get into trouble, you can actually hit the home button on the controller, and it'll automatically then take you and fly you home. So no matter where it's at, your direction turned, or you're just learning. I mean, it's a lot easier than it used to be. And my first one that I had, that I bought like at the store, pulled out of the box, it did not have a camera. So it was all, I call it sight flying, being able to fly it and looking at it at the same time. Yeah.
On the big one, do you take it off or do you map each field separately, or do you take it off the globe and the tractor and the planner with a GPS?
That's a good question.
We can do both. You can do both. You can download shape files and take planter data, spray data, harvest data from your, whatever you're using, if it's a climate or case or deer, and you can take that and make it into a file and put it into this controller. The problem with that sometimes, because this is aerial application, a lot of those boundaries are made, within inches of a fence line or under a tree or around a telephone pole or whatever. So you can do that, but then you have to go back in and edit those boundaries. So once you get good at mapping, or once you've done it for a day, it's faster to put the maps in yourself. A lot of people want to do that and like to do it, and that's their first question usually, but you can do it. 99% of the people do not, just for that reason.
And sometimes they don't read power lines.
Yeah.
Well, they're supposed to, but they sometimes don't. It's kind of like a safety on a gun. You don't want to rely on it too much, but they do have sensors that will detect up to, what, a centimeter, less than?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's variable based on the sunlight, the direction of where the light's coming from, because some things are just look invisible at the right angle. So, I mean, it can fool. If it can fool our eye, it can also fool just a sensor. Essentially, these sensors that we're talking about, is all these little black dots that you see. They have 4 main sensors on each corner. There's a couple of them on the bottom, and all of these. This one has even more, but it's using those optics to be able to judge the distances that it sees from objects. And it all has to do that because some of these go 45, 50 miles an hour. So it has to do it very fast and multiple times a second for it to make sure that it stays as safe as possible. They are extremely impressive machines. I have a video.
Yeah, any more questions on this spray drone or anything else that I've missed or haven't said, because I do that quickly.
This is your spray drone?
So this
The
is
big
one.
one?
This is the smallest one. Not the smallest one they make, but the smallest one that we probably sell, or I'd say. This is 5 gallons. The bigger brother to this one is 10.5 gallons. And then we carry another brand of drone, and it's 13.5 gallons. Next fall, or this fall, they will come out with a 15-gallon drone and a 17-gallon drone. So, and, you know, a good question is how big are they gonna get? In talking to those manufacturers, it's gonna determine on the battery, I would say. I mean, the problem, the limiting factor is size, obviously, and then having enough battery power to make sure you can take it off, fly it, and get it empty and get it back. So there is a lot of management once you put one of these up in the air with 5 gallons or 10 gallons, because they've kinda got it figured out to give you enough battery power to get that up, spray it off, and get it back. So there is some management into operations that you have to take into consideration as to, you know, maybe what drone it is, or how full you fill it, or, you know, things like that.
That brings up a good point. You know, the technology that we currently have with the batteries, it's lithium ion. You know, cell phones, they all have it. Much better than, you know, alkaline or what they used to have. And that's the power. But the thing is, the same thing with the Tesla, it uses a lot of juice, you know, at once. And so it's also then, when it recharges, it's gonna recharge at a fast rate. And that's the difference between some of these batteries as compared to the one in your phone, where it's using just a little bit of power for a long period of time versus a lot of power a short period of time.
Yeah, so with one of these drones, we'll run 3 or 4 batteries in a circuit or whatever, not in a circuit, but in a rotation. So this battery is the same battery that we'll use in the big drone. So in the big drone, we'll fill it up, take it off. 5.5 minutes later, it'll come back, land. We'll swap batteries, fill it up again. That takes about a minute. So every 6.5 minutes, we're swapping batteries. So as they're charging, these batteries will charge from 30 to 40% to full in about 9-10 minutes. So
We always wanna have that rotation so that we never send the drone out with a half a battery in a full tank. Because when you add that weight to it, it significantly puts a larger strain on that battery in order to do that. So it's just much safer. And the same thing goes for any of the other ones. I always say, if you have a full battery and you're about to take off, make sure that it's in there. If you have a half battery, you got a full battery sitting there, switch it out. You know, because it's about that time when you put up a half a battery that something cool's happening, you wanna get that on the video or get that shot, and then you're gonna run out of battery.
or you're walking a half mile through a cornfield. Yeah, so battery spraying system. We also can do dry, and we do a lot of seeding in the fall cover crops. I've got guys in Oklahoma that seed alfalfa with it, spread fertilizer with them. So do a lot, and it's not complicated, it's simple. The tank comes out. We unplug it over there, drop a dry spreader in, plug it in, it's ready to go. So, yeah, any other questions?
What's that drone weigh?
This one probably weighs about 50 pounds, maybe, with the battery in it. The big drone, that's the 10-gallon drone with the battery in it, weighs 88 pounds. Max takeoff weight for the big drone is 222 pounds. So, I mean, there is a video of a guy that's hanging onto a drone and it takes him out to the pond and drops him, and that's one of these drones, so.
Please don't do that. At least one that we still use. One of the things that we pride ourselves on is to make sure that everybody is safe and compliant. Because of the popularity of these drones and the way that they work, there are certain levels to the licensing and what the FAA allows you to be able to do. So essentially anybody, and I've taught many people how to fly, but any of you guys, I'd be able to teach any of you guys how to use a small one. And like that smallest one there, you don't have to register it, and right out of the box, you can learn how to do it. Once you get good at it, then you can, level up to the next one. But in doing it commercially like we have, like we do, there's a Part 107, it's called, and there's a test that you have to take, it's.
It's like a driver's license, basically.
Yeah, basically a driver's license. And that's to make sure that everybody is compliant and safe and understands the rules and regulations, because there are a lot when it comes to this. I mean, airspace, essentially, we got,
We're
it's open.
playing not in the same space, but in the same part of the world that the airplanes and helicopters are playing in, so we have to follow the same regulations that they follow for the most part. So before we're supposed to file a NOTAM, which is a notice to airmen. And then that's for a specific location for a specific time, so that everybody, or not everybody, but other airplanes, helicopter pilots know that we're gonna be in the area and in the air. So that's one of the regulations, or pieces of regulations that, we have to stay on top of.
And that goes for the larger drones. The smaller ones, a little bit different, because they are under the 55-pound limit, basically. All drones must stick to the same height, so altitude, max altitude is 400 feet, and that's above ground level, not sea level. But you can get clearance to fly even higher if you needed to get an inspection done on a tower or tall building, or whatever the situation. You do have to apply for that, and it's an exemption that the FAA would then allow you to do on a certain, it's not an open window, you have to let them know what day, how many hours and such, to plan accordingly. But otherwise, 400 feet, and the planes and such, they're gonna be 500 and above, so there's a little buffer there. But we still don't wanna ever tangle in the same airspace. What's really nice is that all of these controllers will now allow us to get an alert when there is a manned aircraft approaching the area, that they consider a potential hazard. And we have to allow any manned aircraft the right of way.
Yeah, we have to do it right away.
So if there's an aircraft coming over, I'm gonna lower the drone.
If we're spraying a field and an airplane or a helicopter is spraying, we have to land until they're done and out of the area, is the rules for drones.
So just a safer, we don't ever wanna have that situation, and try to avoid that at all costs.
Yeah.
But, did that whole video play? It was.
Any other questions? All right, who's flying first?
You're a drone, I'll fly it.
Hey, it was nice last week. Anytime you wanna fly one, come on out, I'll hook you up. It's not that hard. I know he said he trained a lot of people, and, I don't know how many we've sold, probably a couple hundred right now. And, there's a guy, came up last summer from southern Iowa, and he's probably in his mid-60s. And, him and his wife, he thought he was gonna want the drone, which he ended up getting one, and I thought, man, I don't know, who's gonna run it for you? He goes, I think I am. And, so, okay, so we went through he was there for 6 hours, and we, let him fly, let him and his wife, I just left him alone and said, here's, I showed him how to do it, let them kind of do it and decide, and we were busy. He ended up taking it home, and for 2 weeks he must have, I didn't hear from him, for the first 2 days I heard from him quite often, and, then for 2 weeks I didn't hear from him much, and he called me one day and he's like, asked a question on the remote, and I was like, well, how's spraying going? He goes, I haven't sprayed yet. I said, really? He goes, I'm gonna start this afternoon, and I thought, I wonder if he's thinking he made a mistake. So I called him back and offered, said, if you are uncomfortable with it, bring it back, I don't want you to feel like you're stuck with it. He goes, no, I'm good. About 2 weeks later, I did not transfer the drone yet, so I can see how many acres he sprayed. He sprayed 1,500 acres. So, and I never heard from him again, so anybody can do it, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's, there is it's kind of an addictive thing. And I found that out firsthand, because, you'll just want to fly more, you'll want to, wow, what does it look like with the sunrise? What's the sunset? Or, and different lighting gives you different, so, but it's pretty neat. And the uses of a drone on the farm, I mean, and I tell everybody, you find more and more uses every time you fly. And because there's always something, I'm gonna fly to the other side of the farm to see what's going on over there, check cattle or.
There's gonna be more and more uses. We're working with a company out of Europe right now that has a camera or something that we put on a drone, and we just did some testing with them this week, and, waiting to hear the results back on that, but, I mean, there's gonna be more and more things that we can use drones for that, I mean, truthfully will make things possible that haven't maybe been possible or hard to do.
You can justify anything you buy, you know?
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing on the fact of how far we've come in such a small amount of time. And seeing it, from the first aircraft that I purchased and compared to now, there's a huge leap in between the first and what we have. But it hasn't been that much time, really.
Anybody know how many acres a guy could spray in a day with one of these?
Just a guess.
One said 40 an hour, one of the,
Oh, you were reading?
yeah.
Alright,
So if you
so
work
how-
an 8-hour day,
How many in a 10-hour day?
Yeah.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. So, yeah, with this little drone here, for instance, 5 gallons, this is probably a 20 to 38, we can get 31 acres an hour out of it on a long stretch of field. The reason we can do that is you only have to swap the battery about every third field, because it uses the same battery as the big drone. So we save time filling it, and it fills faster because it's half the size. You jump up to the bigger drone, so this will do 20 to 30 acres an hour with a pretty decent pilot. The bigger drone will do 15 to 45, depending on your setup, your situation. And then when we get to the 13.5 gallon drone, that one with the same pilot in the good field, where the T40 would do 40, that one will probably do about 60 acres an hour.
And then the larger the capacity, the more we're capable of doing. I think that they're only gonna get bigger, obviously. Once we have the battery technology catch up to where it needs to be in order to get to that next level, that'll be a huge game changer for being able to then step up. But, I mean, essentially the costs of this versus the equipment that it's replacing is a huge difference in between. I think one of my favorite aspects of it is the people that we are attracting with this, just because of the fact that the kids, they love flying. I think that with this, they'll be able to be attracted to it a little bit more. And
25 years ago or so, if you want to come back to the farm, your dad put up a hog building or did something, and so you come back, and now you can spend 30, 40 grand and spray 5,000 acres at $14 an acre in the summer, and that's pretty good living for a kid or anybody. Yeah.
it's a business opportunity. I think that we have a lot of abilities on being able to bring that to the communities. We want to work with other people. We have a lot of guys right now that are coming to purchase them for the first time, based on their friend, bought one straight last year, or even some of the oldest companies that have been doing it only 3 years. So, just because of the laws, regulations that we have now made available to be able to use them in the United States. So, safety-wise, we gotta catch up.
So like that size is 30, 40 grand,
This one here is about 20.
20
Yeah.
or less.
So, and these are, which sucks really, but they're all made in China. Well, these two that we sell are made in China. There is 2 other brands made in Europe. They're not as they're not as efficient, not as user-friendly of a model, so we do not deal in those. And everybody asks, how come the United States can't make a drone? The fact is, there are companies building drones, high payload drones in the States, that are decent, but once those companies get one up and going, the Department of Defense comes in and they take all the technology. So there's a lot of things that go on in all these industries that governments play a role in, and the heavy payload drones, you hear, Ukraine or wherever they're using drones, and obviously that's on the news all the time. So I'm guessing from talking to guys in the industry that our government wants to have all the technology so that they can use it if they need to, instead of giving all that technology to our farmers and whoever may need it, because actually the ag sector is not a big priority for our government as far as technology goes.
Minority.
They're kind of on the bottom, actually. It seems like.
So when everybody asks, why can't we make one, we can and we have, but it's not gonna be in agriculture.
It's actually, on security wise, I can appreciate that, having the good ones on covering our backs, really.
And these drones are, the sensors and the radars and everything that are on these drones are way more capable than what our government will allow to be unlocked in them. So for instance, this drone down in South America is way more efficient than it is here. Just because they dumb down all these sensors to have to fly it slower and make sure that it can't be used for something that we don't want it used for.
Yeah.
Does the FAA require any scheduled maintenance?
That's a good question. Yeah, so, yes and no. These do, when we file for an exemption, on the larger ones, there is an airworthiness certificate that basically DJI, or the manufacturers have already, submitted one to the FAA to understand, the logistics of how it works and everything. So it's made the process a lot easier. But similar to other aircraft, there is a scheduled maintenance, to make sure that they are, in airworthy, condition to be able to continue to, to be used. But it's similar. These, obviously, we, perform our own maintenance. You don't want them down, just like any other, equipment, you're gonna lose money, without having that in operation. But, for the most part, the components are nice, easy to understand.
Do you have to keep like a logbook on the maintenance on it?
Yeah.
Hours of operation? Or?
Yeah, we do, so these are all named, or, once we register or activate one of these, it's named, that's in our system. And then, every time we work on it or we have to repair it or something, that name goes on that repair sheet or that work order, so we keep that in the file. So yeah, we do that.
Are they difficult to insure?
Well,
We got some great questions. Yeah, this is good. Yeah, these are, that is a little tough. I just say that, when I first started looking for insurance, I called 24 different insurance companies. Not a single one knew where to begin. Drone insurance, what for?
there is probably, right now, 3 or 4 companies that will underwrite drone insurance, and I don't know if it's quite insurance, so to speak. But it's expensive, and I tell people, you gotta have liability. You can get liability insurance and chem liability, you gotta have to be able to spray with one. But like whole coverage insurance in case it crashes and you wanna, realize the value of your drone, that's, $4,000 to $5,000 per drone. And I tell everybody that's fine, but if I teach you how to fly it and you're smart, you can do a lot of fixing for $5 grand. So, parts and labor, we fixed a lot of drones, and no one wants to crash them, but it does happen. But we've had them laid in a pile and it's, you know, $35,000, $4,000, we'll put it all back together and have it flying. So, yeah, that, it is gonna change. We've been talking to an insurance company in Des Moines because they're trying to figure out how to get some actuarial data to be able to figure out what's the risk here. And there's just not been a lot of data out there. So with the data that we've had over the past 3 years, we're working with them to get that in their hands so that they can actually try to figure out what is the risk and how do we minimize it and how do we put a value on coverage. And if that does happen, that should help out the customer as far as the price on insurance.
Cause there isn't even, I mean, through the whole spectrum of the business, there isn't anything that we can compare it to. Cause there's never been a business that's done this with the equipment. So, a lot of new challenges, a lot of new things coming up. And, you know, just gotta keep asking questions and continue to have those conversations, you know, discussing.
It'd be a lot easier if we could speak Chinese too.
Careful what you wish for.
We actually ran into a guy, and I think we about hired a guy that is pretty fluent in Mandarin. And then we actually got a guy that's on our compliance team. He spent, Sam, how long, he was over in China for a few months, and he can,
He says he's comfortable.
you know, so I guess we got that far.
I don't know a small amount of Spanish, so I kind of hard to read the directions, right?
Yeah.
No, it's a lot of fun. I mean, what job out there is there that you could say it's a lot of fun? But to me, I have a passion about it because of where it started for me. I mean, when I was a kid, you know, more of a toy kind of thing. But there are a lot of professional jobs that actually rely on, you know, these electronics. Or they rely on the data that comes from the electronics. Because there's a lot more than, you know, just a photo that you're seeing. With the multispectral drone that we have, it's just a little bit larger than this one. We're capable of flying over top of a field and immediately being able to identify where the stressed areas are of the plants. So essentially we can, you know, find any of the insects, diseases, or anything that's, you know, damaging that, and, you know, then use our management solutions to be able to mitigate problems, or, you know, might have to walk out there. But in any case, we're able to find a lot of those things, a lot of those threats, days in advance. And then using the spray drone to be able to go out there and take care of that, we don't have to wait in line for the air tractor to come. You know, we'll find you know, alternate methods. So essentially, we're able to take care of it that much faster. Also, the data that we're collecting, we're able to scan a field. We can apply that application to that field, and a couple days later scan it again, and then compare the two and see how well that product worked, because there's a lot of products out there. And, you know, the question is, how well does it work? How does it compare to all the other products out there? So with this, being able to collect that data like that and have it immediate, I mean, it takes just a little bit to render it on the computer after you're done, but to be able to have that, how well did it work, not long after the application that's a huge upgrade on what we're capable of doing, because some of those decisions might affect what happens through the entire season. You know, there could be people out there that are applying way too much. You know, we might find out that, well, you can use a lot less of that, you know, as compared to what currently is happening.
You know, knowing that this was coming up, I was flipped through TV the other day, and they had some deal where it was over in Italy, and they were using drones to go over the areas where the big battles had been done before they got into Rome. There were a couple big battles where a lot of Americans were killed. And they wanted to analyze where were the Nazis all set up? Cause it's all overgrown, I mean, from that many years ago. And they had several drones that they used, some with infrared, some with other things that they could look at it and they could eliminate all of the ground cover as well and see where all of these things were. I thought that was just totally fascinating. The ability that they had to look at an area of ground and immediately get all that analysis, so.
Yeah.
I think too, it's
Yeah.
mind-boggling just
Yeah,
what.
there's
capable.
different payloads, and I don't, we can't, that's not a drone. So they make a drone that, I don't know,
It's a little bit
it's bigger than that, but you can swap out payloads. So a lot of the drones that
Payload,
they're
you
probably
mean?
using.
By camera, we mean by
Yeah.
payload camera. This one isn't swappable, but yeah, there's other versions, we can pop that camera off, put a different one on. There's a photogrammetry camera is gonna be different than one of them that's gonna be able to get topographic, and that's probably what
Yeah.
you're referring to, because with that, essentially, we're able to scan an area, even if it has, very dense trees. Essentially, we can drop the layers so that we just see only the contours of the land that's, under the trees. And kind of impressive how that works, but.
I mean, they
Yeah.
just walking across on the ground, they could see,
Yeah.
so they
Yeah.
could see from up above.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a totally different aspect once you get in there. We'll have to do a demonstration. I wanna fly and have you guys see that, cause it is pretty amazing.
So when do projects start? Or is there stuff going on now?
Projects for us.
But yeah,
I'm going to Oklahoma, they're planning on starting spraying in about 2 weeks. Texas, probably, just talked to a guy down there, they got 20,000 acres that they're wanting to start on. It's a dry product they wanna put on. So it'll start shortly and it'll be busy through fall.
Yeah, it's beginning now. We were doing a lot of shows, going to different farm shows and such, talking with people and connecting with other businesses and understanding, asking questions, because there's still a lot of questions that I have that are unknown, that nobody has the answer to. Just kind of, as we go, understand and learn what we need in order to get the answers that we're looking for. But, practice, playing, flying.
So in other words, there was no course you took, you just trial and errored it.
Yeah, I mean, there is, now, when I started, there was nothing. But now there are plenty of, videos that you can, training videos that you can watch in order to learn and understand. It seems like a lot of the videos it's not just a one, understand everything. A lot of videos are focused on a specific model, or the specific objective, that you're trying to do. In this case, spray fields, or do any kind of spreading.
That's honestly why, that's probably honestly why we're here today,
Yeah.
is because when I started, there was no handbook and there was no one to call, so it took me 10 days, and I remember going home and saying, if someone would give me my money back, I'd get rid of that thing. So after about 10 days, I figured it out, because there was no one to call, they could tell you what they're supposed to do, but every problem I ran into, and I tried to call somebody, if someone answered, they had no idea. So,
Well, perfect example, everybody remembers when they got their first smartphone. There's no buttons, what? And now most people, they don't have a problem, navigating and, being able to, search the web on their phone, so. Kind of the same way, same thing.
Still don't live smart.
That's all right, we're jealous of you.
I held out as long as I could. The day my feed guy was emailing me rations, I'm like, where am I supposed to get that at? Well, get it on your phone. I'm like, I have a flip phone yet. So I think I'm gonna have to start, take the lead.
But yeah, it's, and people that say, well, those too confusing, if you know how to send a text message, you could fly it from home. Essentially, we're just, tapping the screen to, get it started, understand, but I think the main thing people need to understand is just where to go to find out if you can fly in the area that you're at. Because there are a lot of people that don't understand that yet, and they break the rules. They need to be, made an example of. I hear stories all the time about people buying a drone and flying it into the football stadium. That's not a good thing. Essentially flying over a crowd of people, 40, 50,000, I don't know how many are in a stadium, but it's just a bad thing to happen. Unless you had permission. I mean, there's a lot of red tape you have to go through in order to be able to fly that, but, yeah. Making sure everybody understands the rules is probably the toughest part. The enjoyment comes, definitely. Yeah.
You carry most of the parts to
Yeah.
fix it.
Yeah, last year, I don't know, we thought we had bought a crap load of parts. And I think I think that was like $25,000 worth before the season started. I think we spent another 80. So, yeah, we'll carry, we had enough parts, and so, yeah, it's a good thing we did, but we do have an abundance of parts.
How long's the warranty on one?
6 months to a year, depending on parts, pieces, or whatever it is.
Depends on who's flying.
We'll have someone call and say, I don't know what happened, it just fell out of the sky.
Well, bring your remote in.
Bring your
too.
remote in, and we'll just, what I need my remote, we'll upload the flight logs and we'll send it to China and they'll tell us what happened. Oh, they can do that? Well, maybe,
Yeah. Well, I hit the barn. All right, there it is. Because we do, I mean, that's the thing, with any aircraft, you need to be able to understand where it got started, its flight path, and then, where it lands. And that's, for the safety, just of the aircraft alone, but also for everybody else. Doesn't even know that it's ahead, above, so it's important to have those details. And they do come in handy in trying to diagnose a situation on, why did it just fall out of the sky? There's gotta be a reason.
and I'm not saying it doesn't, all
No.
of those guys.
It's electronics, I mean, they have their days. We've all.
Seems like 4:30 on Friday.
Yeah.
We don't wanna fall from the sky every Friday. It is electronics, general.
So even that big drone then will make its way home, or you can push the home button?
Yeah.
Even,
Yeah.
but
We
it's
can,
running
we
low on
can,
battery power.
we can return it to home at any time by pushing a button.
Oh,
It will return to home after it's done spraying a mission. It'll come home. When the tank is empty, it will come home. So there's 3 settings where it return to home. When the battery level hits, we can set that from 0 to 30%. So when that battery level hits that, it'll return to home.
It saves a,
so-
reserve amount of juice just to get it back to where, but I find that the return to home, as convenient as it is, I don't ever use it, just because it takes forever.
It's inefficient to use.
It climbs immediately to a safe altitude, and then it flies to essentially above where it took off, and then it slowly descends. But it's also using every single little bit of its sensors to make sure that there isn't a vehicle that just got pulled up right where it took off, 'cause that would be bad. But, yeah, there's a lot of information that it's gathering and understanding about where it's gonna land before it actually does. And if it does detect something, I've actually had them, it'll actually pull it up on the, and give you a warning on the unit saying that, please check, you know, on the spot, obstacle detected. And if it does, you know, if somebody's standing close to the area of where it's about to land, it'll let you know. So, yeah, if any, you know, if anybody does ever get their hand in a blade or something, it's a user error. It's not something that the machine did.
It will warn you about 3 times before you actually have to make it do something that it doesn't want to do.
Have you ever had any problems with flyaways?
I never have.
Not with these, no. Not with these, I haven't. And I don't know what attitude mode, what that means or what it does, if it's just there's a signal, like with
Yeah,
those little drones.
It hasn't locked onto the signal properly for it to understand its location. But they used to be when these drones first came out, and they were starting to get the whole GPS thing, there was some issues with flyaways. You know, people would turn it on, and they would launch it, and then it would just go and never came back. Where do they go? I don't know.
What
but-
technology these spray drones anyhow, I'm not as in the tune on the smaller drones, but I've never seen or heard of one of these just taking off. And for one, the battery, I mean, like a little drone, it can take off and I don't know how many miles it can go before it runs out of battery. This thing probably is gonna run out of battery fairly quick.
Yeah, I mean, I suppose it'd probably go 10 miles easy.
The little ones.
Yeah, I mean, it would be impossible to find it. But now they have, you know, tracking options, and it'll beep if it crashes, and, you know, of course, you see using the screens. You
I
kinda
will,
get
I
an
will
idea.
tell you, as big as these seem, when you're walking through a cornfield, and it is 2 rows over, they're hard to see.
That's experience, is it?
Yep.
Yeah.
Doesn't wipe out much corn when it goes that.
It chops it all the way down.
Yeah, but I mean, to where you can see.
It does,
Yeah.
but I'm telling you, they're elusive.
Yeah. But in the coloring, actually, you know, they have, obviously, it goes from light to dark, but that little one, if you get it in the air, it's really hard to see. Some of them have, this one has a beacon, for night flying, that's one of the requirements, but turning that on, it creates a really loud flash that helps be able to see it from further away. But yeah, you can get out of sight quite easily with them, for sure. Any other questions? Who's going first?
I don't know if I have anything else to say, but
No, I wanna launch one, show them.
we'll on.
Yeah, all right.
We can see it here, can we?
Yeah. Yeah, I can see it out the window.
Let's see the video.
Oh yeah, we'll put the video right on the big TV. You're all right. You're all right.
As far as I go.
Why am I asking that for now?
I've never flown myself.
Oh, you did.
This will be really interesting for you guys to see. This is a thermal drone. So it picks up heat signatures. It goes on, yeah. that software update. This will be really neat.
Paying for that yellow pickup.
That yellow pickup.
Remember that insurance talk? Uh-oh.
Don't like it.
Won't go?
I gotta check something.
Yeah, he won't go.
Waiting for the map to update.
Clear picture.
Yeah, there goes the fence.
Yeah, I'm gonna disconnect that, see if that's the.
Is it in the air?
No, it won't let me go. I adjusted the, distance. That was on.
Aircraft location set as home point. Home point updated. Check map to confirm. Taking off.
Change the voices on that.
I'm used to it.
I set you up for that one.
I don't think it likes it because of the, I think it's sensing the flag.
Ah,
No, right there, sure.
Keep saying it's a, upward sensor.
Yeah, don't scratch that, though.
flag.